45 years, 0 name changes, new offices, more staff, improved technology to better serve you. Education, services, investments. Think real estate, think Marshall Reddick. Brokerage, property management, private lending, creating financial independence through real estate since 1979.
Thank you guys for joining us. I'm Chris Carlson with Marshall Reddick, and I've got Charles from Robert Hall, our tax associates and friends. I always like to say, I feel like taxes and real estate is sort of like milk and cookies. You can't really separate them. At least I can't personally. Got to have my Oreos with milk. So I'm almond milk these days, I guess. But you can't really have a very successful real estate portfolio without a trusted CPA. And I think I might make the argument today that's the case with property management and real estate. But if you guys are thinking about property management in general, this is a really great webinar to just learn some tips and tricks on how to interview a property manager. But I'm going to let Charles take it away and chat a little bit more about his firm and what they can do for you. Charles, if you want to get us started, that'd be fantastic.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Chris, and hello, everyone. Appreciate you all joining us on this busy evening when you can be doing literally anything. Some of you all, I may be a familiar face, I may not. As I was just telling Chris, this month makes 1 year since joining Robert Hall and Associates. So, 1 year, sorry about that. I work in the biz dev space, so all things strategic partnerships and, vendor liaison magic and things like that. I like to think of it as a connector. And I'll tell you a little bit about RHA. Chris, am I able to click through? Do I do it directly from the PowerPoint?
Definitely. I think if you give it a click, it should cycle you to the next slide.
Awesome.
If it doesn't, there we go. Nice.
There we go. All right, so there's me, a shiny bald head. Just a little bit about me and my background. Spent some time in the biz dev space, working in the tech industry. I lived up in the Bay Area after high school and stayed up there for a few years. Got bit by the tech bug and fell in love with business development and everything that entails. I'm super passionate about not only real estate, but just tax prep, having just the knowingness. And my dad would always tell me, as it pertains to tax, as it pertains to life and business, it's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. And that's an ideology that is very true to taxes, but in all ventures in life, whether you're working out super hard for an event, or you're running, or you're raising your kids, it's like we can pour all this into them. But I just think retaining in general is a theme that has been very pertinent for me throughout my life. It's something I'm passionate about. And as it pertains to real estate, that's our bread and butter. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Fun fact about me, I'm a film photography enthusiast. Been a photographer for about 10 years. It's a fun hobby of mine. And I collect a bunch of cameras and stuff like that. And another fun fact, I became a father. This slide, I just realized I didn't update this slide fully. That's my bad. A father as of 8 months ago, as of last Monday.
Yeah, we don't judge you for not updating your slide.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Chris was just giving me some grace and kind of perspective, and as it pertains to being a father and a professional is all good stuff. And as I'm sure a lot of you all know as well. So that's just a little bit about me. Jumping into the next slide, these are the faces of our tax consultants at Robert Hall Associates, and the rest of our staff as well. We actually just added one new consultant to the team, a senior consultant by the name of Tina. We're very excited about her joining the team. She adds another dynamic piece to our operation. So again, if you've worked with us in the past, or if you're looking to work with a tax preparer that specializes in the real estate in the future, these are some of the faces that you can trust to take care of you. Super diverse group. Not only just what we look like, our thought processes, how we get things done. It's just we all come together to be a team, and rock the boat. So I'm going to just jump over to the next one here. Apologize for my clicking. Here we go. Oh, it looks like I'm having some trouble. Oh, there we are. Okay, cool. So a little bit about Robert Hall and Associates, and I'll run through this super quick because I know a lot of you all have. You've been through this process before. You're familiar with who we are, but if you're not, we've been in business since 1971, still family owned. Robert Hall it was a teacher, and he, just like Steve Jobs, set up shop in his garage and built his business up from there. And what I love about that story, and just that kind of that founding story, is that teaching and education is still at the core of what we do. So we love collaborating with the Chris Carlsons of the world and Marshall Reddicks of the world. I think regardless of our end goal, I think teaching and just leaning on that education, whether it's the free second opinion or just jumping on a webinar, I think it's pivotal to our improvement. But yeah, we process these days around 12,000 returns a year, and no two tax returns are the same. That's something that we understand, but we do have the reps, for lack of a better term, and that technical wherewithal to really help walk you through the advantages of working with a real estate specific tax advisor or property manager. A little bit about us, of course, you can see it obviously, loved by clients and all that good stuff. I'll just kind of skip over to the next slide. Something to keep in mind, I know a lot of times when we think about tax prep, we're accustomed to just, you go see your CPA one time and then, it's like, peace out, I'll see you later, talk to me when I talk to you. That's not our approach. We really value understanding what your goals are from the very beginning, and then just being an integral part of your business and your system all the way through. So we do tax prep, we do business and corporation services. So if you're just starting out and you're thinking about, or even restructuring, if you're not just starting out, but you're curious about how you could shift your entities around or restructure your entities so that in the long run you're best suited to achieve said goals, then we can help with that. We have an entire internal auditing department led by one of our senior consultants, Phil Duncan. We've got a financial planning arm, Iron Hill Wealth Management. It's our sister company or brother company, essentially, right there in our office. When clients, especially with wealth planning, we know it's something that involves a fair amount of risk when you're looking at different vehicles and investment opportunities. So we really value having our partner in Iron Hill right there in our office. After your consultation, if it is in the office, it's just a short walk down the hall to get that direct introduction. And if not, it's a phone call where we're very well integrated with them. So that's a seamless process there. Bookkeeping services is a new one we've just added to the slate. We've got an entire bookkeeping team, payroll services, estate planning, accounting, the whole gambit. And this just kind of speaks to the point I was just making. It's like we really want to become an extension of your business, and we want to be partners to you versus just kind of that one-off CPA that does things and they may be good at what they do. But one differentiator I always like to make, our consultants are enrolled agents, so they're federally licensed. So if you have properties across state lines or businesses in multiple states, that's no problem. And these enrolled agents are also investors and business owners. So you're not just meeting with a tax preparer or a consultant, but someone who lives what you live. So there's that added level of just feeling seen and knowing that we understand what you're going through, and we're taking the time to make sure that we dial in our solutions and services for you in particular, with you in mind. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, I didn't mention our free consultation. Again, we're big on teaching. Like if we can sit down with you and get you with a consultant and you have a conversation and you walk away feeling a little bit motivated, even if you don't decide to work with Robert Hall Associates, even though we really want you to, and we're confident we can do a good job, for us, it's just about making sure you're equipped to make the most out of your situation. Tax is just a small piece, not a small piece, but it's a piece of your larger puzzle. So if you text the word Robert Hall to 72000, that initiates the process for a free consultation. You will get a text back. A couple of things that you would need to just prepare. Past couple returns if you wanted to really go in depth. But the benefits of it, we look out for potential red flags, audits that could potentially happen. And again, we'll get into this at a later date, and then you'll get free periodic updates and emails from us in regards to the tax code, a lot of which, so there's some stuff that's going to be changing soon. We just had the election, and yeah, we'll do a webinar at the top of the year just to talk about some of the things in the tax code that we can expect. So yeah, that is about us and RHA. I appreciate being here and being able to do that quick opener. I'm going to pass it back to Chris, who I'm super excited to actually learn a thing or two myself from tonight. And yeah, Chris, it's all you, man.
Thank you so much, Charles. That was I got my phone out so I could text 72,000 to Robert Hall and get my free consultation. Honestly though, it's like you really can't. I think once you get past just having a W-2 job, right, and you start to expand your life and own real estate and have investment properties and primary residences, and maybe you have an S corp or a sole proprietorship, and you're doing bonus depreciation and 1031 exchanges, it gets very complicated very quickly. And I think you got to meet with your CPA at least a couple times a year. Gone are the days of using TurboTax, I would say, for a lot of those people on the call today. So thank you so much. Very valuable information, and really appreciate you guys partnering up with us over the years.
Absolutely. And just a heads up, Chris, I'm going to be turning my camera off for some added bandwidth, but I'm right here with you all. I'm definitely looking forward to this, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, guys, my name's Chris Carlson. Just a quick intro. I don't have a shiny bald head. I've got a full head of hair still, thank God. But I've got a few years of real estate under my belt. Graduated from the University of Kansas and jumped into real estate for really just a drive to help clients build wealth. And I've been able to do that, thankfully, for my entire career here. And I've been with Marshall Reddick for a little over a year now. I own investment property myself. I'm out of state in places like Texas. I've done quite a number of transactions, but really have focused more on the real estate investment side. So 1031s, value add, multifamily stuff, project management. I invest in our mortgage fund here at Marshall Reddick, which I'll briefly touch on. And of course, there's a few of you on the call that may not be too familiar with Marshall Reddick. I'll briefly touch upon what we cover here, but we're a full service real estate brokerage, and we like to consider ourselves as a one-stop shop for investors. So we've got agents that specialize in helping you find your next investment deal. In 2024, we're kind of heading towards 600 transactions, 90% of which are investment deals in state and out of state. But really none of that is operable without our property management team. I think as you gain experience in real estate investing, you understand that maybe 5 or 10% of the journey is finding your market, finding your niche, finding your asset, finding the deal, underwriting it, and then closing on it. But the 95% of it is operating the asset and understanding how to really monetize this new business called real estate investing. That property is a business and it should be treated as such. And I would argue that hiring a property manager is kind of like hiring a CEO to run your business. And if they do it right, they're going to optimize your income and allow you to kind of sit back and collect a check. We also offer private money lending services for borrowers that are looking for funds for non-owner occupied residential real estate investments. So we do private money lending, and our borrowers are a lot of times our clients. As you get up to 10, 12, 13, 15 properties, you might not be able to qualify for conventional financing. So that's when we step in and help you guys get deals done. And on the flip side of this, we also have the investment fund. So we raise capital from our capital partners and then lend that money out to our borrowers. Our capital partners that are a part of our mortgage fund, like myself, sit back and collect a quarterly check, which is nice. We make money off of the origination fees and interest on the mortgages. A good way of explaining it is I heard someone say today, actually, the hardest part of my day is putting on my pajamas and walking to the mailbox to collect my check. So we have a quarterly distribution, but annually it spits out around 8.5% return. If you guys are interested in learning about that, like a more passive way of investing as a lender, then let me know. I mentioned we do deals here in state, out of state. We also manage properties in these markets. So here's a map of all the markets that we manage properties in. We've got a footprint, or I should say our headquarters in Newport Beach, and then we have an office in Pasadena, and we've got multiple offices all over Texas, including New Braunfels, San Antonio, Houston, Austin, and of course Tennessee, a little bit of Kentucky in there, and Cape Coral in Florida. We manage 3,000 properties, and it's really not a mistake on how we, or not a, I guess, a guess on how we identify these markets. It wasn't by accident, I can say that. It was based off of looking for trends in various markets that were ideal for real estate investing. So what makes a good market is a question that I think you should ask yourself if you're looking at your next opportunity. So we judge it by these characteristics. Every market that's worthy of investing in real estate should share these fundamentals. Definitely examine the job market. What does the unemployment rate look like? How has that trended over a long period of time? Vacancy rates, well, they should be low. We definitely want to have high occupancy. Economic diversity is crucial. You want to be in probably slightly larger metropolitan areas that have diverse economics in the sense that you've got multiple sectors, multiple industries, not just reliant on one employer. I think Detroit is maybe like an example of that, right? One economic factor kind of destroyed the city for many generations. And as jobs got outsourced from manufacturing, it was really challenging for them to bounce back. So you want to be in markets when you're investing in real estate that, like government, education, technology, manufacturing, transportation, healthcare, look for that. And that's going to really set you up well in the future and help you be insulated from economic crashes, recessions, and booms. Housing affordability, we also focus on looking at markets with housing affordability. Now, we're based here in California, and we know that's a very big challenge. So a lot of our investors are investing in places like Texas, where there's room for growth. Same with Florida, Tennessee, and Kentucky. There's upward appreciation, mobility, I guess you could say. And of course, landlord-friendly states. We really like landlord-friendly states. California has some challenges there with that. I think that's a big reason why folks hire us here in California, is that California is incredibly complex, whether you're navigating AB 1482, the statewide rental cap, or if you're in LA, you've got the rent stabilization ordinance, RSO, if you've got multifamily built before a certain year. And you even have local ordinances in small, like Culver City or Inglewood. So and it seems like every city now is popping up, or county is popping up with their own ordinance. It's very challenging to maintain records and keep track of all of that. So that's why hiring a property manager is essential, I think, to navigate that. I kind of have to be a lawyer as well as in a real estate investor these days if you're investing in California. Not so much in places like Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, that's for sure. I also like strong education. Markets with strong education yield white-collar jobs, and those white-collar employees tend to be long-term stable tenants, and they also tend to buy properties in the future, which helps your appreciation. And last but not least, reliable property management. So we like to think we definitely provide that service, but I'm excited to chat more here in detail tonight about what makes a good, reliable property manager. This is our team. We got to see Robert Hall's really wonderful team. I would echo that sentiment. We have a really diverse pool of employees, but not just in the way that we look, but also in our experience and our mindset and what we all offer. This is the folks that make the property management team and the wheels go around, I guess you could say. These are the folks that are optimizing your asset and ensuring that our clients are receiving their monthly checks with a lot less headache than they otherwise would have. So we've got property managers, accountants, a marketing team, real estate agents, analysts, our lending team, and the list kind of goes on here. But these are the offices all across the multiple states that we're based out of. So what is professional management? I think good professional management requires a management philosophy. I think every property manager that you're thinking of hiring should have a good philosophy underpinning how they operate. These tenants are really valuable to us, which is partnership. This is a long-term journey. This is the best way I could, make an analogy here is sort of like a marriage, right? Or a business partnership. We sign a one-year contract with our clients, but it's going to definitely be many, many years that we're going to be working together. So it should be established off of trust. And trust takes time to build, but we do that with transparency, whether that's documentation, providing you with quotes and estimates on time and clearly communicating, and having candid, sometimes challenging conversations that we think are going to be best suited for you guys to optimize your real estate investing. So we'll get into details of some examples about that. when it comes to partnerships, I kind of miss the core tenet here is that we never want to make money when the landlord loses money. So what does that mean? Well, we don't want to profit off of maintenance. Absolutely, you should be only working with property managers that use third-party vendors. When they have in-house vendors, in-house contractors that work for the property management company, they're profiting off of maintenance. Anytime there's an issue at your property, they're going to be taking a big chunk of change. So partnership is essential here. And you want investment-minded managers. As I touched upon, I also invest in real estate. Most of our employees here that you're going to work with at Marshall Reddick, whether it's our property managers or realtors, they're either invested in our mortgage fund or they're investing in out of state or in state here in California. So to achieve the highest return with the least amount of risk and time, you want to work with investment-minded managers. We do specialize in residential real estate management. So if you have commercial properties, I wish we could help you out, but we do specialize in residential real estate. So single family homes, duplexes, condos, townhomes, multifamily dwellings, apartment buildings up to 29 units, unoccupied or occupied, occupied with documentation, which means we're gonna probably ask you to provide us with lease agreements, security deposits, things like that. So we know what we're getting into. I'm sure some of you guys have managed many units without proper documentation, and it could be challenging to kind of untangle that. So if you guys are thinking about hiring a property manager, get all that documentation ready to go for that new property manager. And this is what we really offer. I mean, in a nutshell, it's turnkey service, right? So you should be looking for a property management company that gives you monthly property statements, annual performance reports, tax documentation. So you can go to Robert Hall and be able to provide them with all the documents necessary so they can file your return, right? Your Schedule E. And repairs, invoices, and receipts that all need to be easily documented and found on a software service. We use AppFolio. It's a top of the line software service for transparency. So all of our landlords can log in and see what's going on with their property at any point in time, run reports. And of course, if God forbid we have to deal with an eviction, you want to work with someone that specializes or at least has a lot of experience in evictions. I would also recommend asking the property managers that you're looking at hiring what their eviction rate is in their portfolio, and as well as their default rate. I briefly touched upon this, but you want your property manager getting third-party repair bids. You don't want that third party to be their brother-in-law, right, that has an HVAC company or something. You always want them to be a completely third-party, neutral party that's licensed, bonded, and insured. For our tenants, obviously, we have 24/7 maintenance. We get feedback from our tenants all the time on how we can improve our service, and we put them through applications, credit checks, background checks, verifications. We do rent collection, obviously. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty here on all of the various steps. But what a property manager can do for you long-term is decrease your vacancy. Think about how much vacancy costs you each and every day. And if you hired someone to help you optimize that by reducing your vacancy by 30 days, 60 days, 90 days throughout your portfolio, it's going to make a big impact on your bottom line. We also reduce your liability. So things like, smoke detectors being replaced every 10 years is a requirement for the state. So we want to make sure that you guys aren't liable for potential lawsuits, and that we're kind of ticking off all the little boxes to satisfy all of the requirements per the state of California or whatever state you have your property in. And reducing expense repairs and emergencies, whether that's preventative, taking a look at your roof every few years, looking at how your soil comes up against the side of the building and determining if there's water intrusion issues and if we can prevent that by adding concrete sidewalks, little things like that. We want to work hand in hand with you guys to make sure that we're extending the life of your building and reducing huge expenses over the lifespan. Like I mentioned, this is going to be a 5, 10, 15-year relationship, and those big projects may seem expensive now, but these are recommendations, obviously, with your approval, but it's going to extend the lifespan of your building and decrease costs for capital expenditure over a long period of time. And we're also going to help you find the best quality renters. We really put a lot of energy into our screening process, which we're going to spend a bit of detail on today on exactly how we vet our tenants. But suffice to say that we pull reports every single month looking at our default rate. And I think we have one of the best default rates in really anywhere. It's right now right at 99% of our tenants are paying rent on time. So less than 1% of our tenants are defaulting, which is incredibly good. We manage hundreds and hundreds of properties here in California, and I don't know of many property managers that can say that. And then the end goal here, I think, is less stress, less headache, and less time away from your work and leisure. You're probably going to make more money in your own business, operating, your law practice, or owning your mechanic shop or whatever it is that you do for a living, than it would be to spend hours and hours in your free time trying to deal with tenant headaches. So that's what a property manager really should be doing for you guys ultimately. This is a brief example of what the life cycle of a property management contract should look like, especially if you have a vacant unit. We're going to do an initial inspection. If you're thinking of hiring us, this is specific to Marshall Reddick and how we handle things. So you'll have someone like myself visit your property, do a walk around or a walk through if the property is vacant, provide you with a rental analysis, tell you what we think market rent for all of your units would be. If it's just one, great. If it's 20 units, we'll run a market analysis on your unit mix. Walk you through our management agreement and our landlord onboarding procedure, helping you navigate getting landlord insurance if you don't have landlord insurance, adding Marshall Reddick as additional insured, the make-ready repairs process if the property is vacant, getting the home ready for rent essentially, with small improvements, maybe like painting or appliance repairs, adding smoke detectors so that that house is ready to go for a new tenant to move in. After we've done that, we're putting the property on the market for rent, taking professional photos, advertising it on all the major networks like Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, and we use incredibly experienced leasing agents that are going to be showing your property. Pretty much every leasing agent here in our California or LA and Orange County office owns multiple investment properties. So anyone that you're working with is not going to be a master only of running CMAs and market analysis and doing showings, but they're going to be able to look at finding a great tenant from you from the perspective of a landlord, which I think is really unique here at Marshall Reddick. Once we get an application, we'll put them through our proprietary in-house screening and background check. This is something that separates us from a lot of firms, which is we do our screening process completely in-house. We don't use third-party services like Rent Spree or the Zillow application or Turbo Tenant. We're looking at documents here like pay stubs and bank statements with a fine-tooth comb, not letting an automated service take care of that. And of course, once we find a qualified tenant, we're going to sign them up on a lease with the California Association of Realtors lease. And before they move in, do a full move-in evaluation of the home, making sure that the property is, of course, ready to go. And then once they move in, that's when the property management fee kicks in. We don't charge management fees while the property is vacant, something that's very essential for you to know. When the property is vacant, not collecting rent, we don't have management fees in place. So if you're a new client of ours without a tenant in place and we're going through this property, there's no upfront cost to you. It's only after the tenant is in place and the tenant's lease began, that's when our property management fee kicks in. And of course, that's when we're dealing with the ongoing maintenance using our third-party vendors to take care of any repair issues. And then we do a mid-lease property evaluation. So months before the property or the lease expires for any existing tenant, we're going to go in and do a full annualized inspection, take 100 pictures of the property, no exaggeration. I have a 1,300 square foot single family home that Marshall Reddick manages for me, and there's probably 80 pictures from the last inspection, which was pretty incredible. I didn't even know you could take that many pictures of that small of a house. So if you've got a big house, we're going into every nook and cranny and making sure that we understand what's been done to the property before that tenant moves in, so we can 100% document any damages after they move out. And that takes place at the move out inspection. When we offboard a tenant, that's when we would deduct any repairs that's been documented from the move-in inspection. And when they post move out, and make sure we send itemized receipts to the tenants and deduct from that security deposit. I really love to go over this with clients, which is their rent ready process. How do you get your property ready for rent if you do have a vacant unit? We want to make your property an attractive rental option for tenants at the highest possible rent in the shortest amount of time. So we want to market your property effectively, but it's not going to be able to be effectively marketed unless the property is in excellent showable condition. That usually means fresh paint, right? If it hasn't been painted in 4 or 5 years, you're going to want to look at that cost. So we look at it from a cosmetic perspective, like paint, and then we're also going to look at it from like a safety perspective. So are there any deferred maintenance issues? Are there any hazards in the home, like dead smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors? Preventative maintenance, like maybe we got to replace some furnace filters to extend the life of the HVAC system. Professionally clean the home. And we're also going to take into account when we're advising you what type of property class you have. So if you've got a luxury home in Beverly Hills that's going to rent for 12 grand a month, well, maybe it makes sense if you've got super dated countertops to replace it with quartz at this point in time if the tenant's been in there for the last 15 years and you got old tired granite. Or maybe we want to resurface or repaint the cabinets to modernize it a little bit. But that advice is going to be a little bit different if you've got a C-class multifamily in Inglewood, right? Maybe it doesn't make sense to pump a bunch of money into cosmetic updates on a unit turn. So we examine the market analysis here, the market data and the trends, and help advise you on where we should put your money to increase your ROI. That's the end goal for every situation, which is what's going to increase your return on your investment. Now, every rent-ready checklist or every rent-ready process requires a checklist. So this is just an example of all the details that we're going to run through for you guys. There's about 50 items that we're looking at here that we're checking off to make sure that we're knocking everything out when we have that opportunity when the house is vacant. And of course, once again, we're using third-party vendors and providing you with multiple estimates during this process. You're going to see the letterhead of the third-party vendor. Everything's a pass-through charge to you guys. And you want us to be completely transparent. You don't want a conflict of interest. You definitely don't want my brother-in-law, who does own a contracting business, to work at Marshall Reddick or to have a business relationship with Marshall Reddick, and he doesn't, because you don't want me profiting when you're losing money. You want your property manager to be the first line of defense when you do have a maintenance issue, which I mean, troubleshooting the issue directly with a tenant, talking to that tenant through their particular situation. Maybe they've got a flipped breaker and they don't know where their electric panel is. Well, we're going to help them get their lights back on without sending out a vendor, right? Common sense things, because we're not making money off of maintenance. It doesn't behoove us to spend hours and hours of time scheduling with contractors, scheduling with tenants, sending out invoices, sending out estimates, if we can simply troubleshoot the issue straight on the phone with the tenant and resolve that. What you're going to see with other bad property management companies, in-house maintenance staff for sure, and zero transparency. Now, once we've got the house ready to go or the unit ready to go and rent ready, we're going to put it on the market. Now, the goal of leasing any rental property is securing the highest rent and best tenant in the shortest amount of time possible. Well, how we do that is by pricing the home appropriately, assigning excellent dedicated leasing agents whose sole focus is renting out your home, screening the applicants manually and thoroughly, and conducting a move-in and move-out inspection. A question I get all the time is how much is my rent, or how much is my property going to rent for? Of course, that's just based on market dynamics, so supply and demand, essentially, right? Your home isn't going to rent for more than it's worth, and the way we determine that is by comparing properties that are nearby and similar through a CMA or a current market analysis. CMAs are performed by our excellent agents and provided to you through a multiple listing service link so that you can see all the data in front of you. We're examining days on markets, how far away, how similar is the property, and giving you a really, really good range of how long to expect your home to be on the market at any given price point. There's really no other way to determine the market price of your rental. I wouldn't suggest like asking your neighbor how much they rented their house out for, because usually they're not telling the truth and you have no idea how they screen the tenant. So going off of a CMA is absolutely the only way to go. It's by looking at the comps. So anything else is really just guesswork. Even just looking at active Zillow listings isn't a really great example. I have a lot of clients that will send me Zillow listings and say, maybe my house could rent for more because I see this one is on the market for $1,500 more than you're suggesting. Well, you know, take a look at that home. Has it been on the market for 180 days? Oh, it has. Well, I think it's been on the market for 180 days because it's been overpriced. Do you want to have a vacancy of 180 days? Probably not, right? So only look at rented or leased properties. When we run the CMA, that's what we're looking at, right? Property type, county and city, beds, baths. We want to look at unfurnished properties because 99% of you guys are probably leasing out standard long-term renters. So we don't want to compare Airbnb lease pricing, which are furnished properties. Maybe take out swimming pools and adjust for that, adjust for parking spaces, all that good stuff. Now, the leasing agent that you're going to work with has a lot of job duties. They're going to coordinate all the photography and advertise it. The photographer that we use is always going to be a professional photographer. There's no camera, cell phone, brick, Nokia phone taking pictures from a corner and it looks like you took it. Pictures with a potato or something. It's not how we roll here at Marshall Reddick. So always using professional photography. It's going to look immaculate because we went through that rent ready process. Before we actually schedule a showing, we're communicating with our prospects on the phone via email and text, just learning a little bit about them, like how qualified are they, just with a series of questions, not too intrusive, like when are they looking to move in? How long have they been looking for real estate? Do they have any pets? How many adults are living in the house? What do they do for work? That kind of stuff, right? Once we determine that they're, probably qualified, we're going to get them into the house, show them around. We're going to make it look obviously as best as possible by showing up early, turning on all the lights, opening up the blinds, lighting a candle if we need to. And then we conduct these showings in person. We never outsource showings. I see a lot of firms that use third-party agents or just set up a lockbox and they send the tenant direct, which is, man, oh man, that is asking for trouble. That is liability nightmare right there. So you want your leasing agent that's assigned to you always to be present for showings. And then, of course, providing you with communication. Remember that trust and candor that I mentioned in the beginning that underpins our philosophy? Well, that's going to start here with the weekly updates. We're going to give you the waterfall of interest. So the number of inquiries, the number of showings, the feedback, how many clicks online that we're receiving, the applicants, what type of applicants we're getting, and what the approved application summaries look like. And that's going to give us a really good insight into whether or not we're priced appropriately or not priced very well. A good rule of thumb for those of you that have properties on the market for rent is you're probably going to want to see like maybe 15 inquiries a week, 10 solid conversations with leads a week with maybe 5 showings a week. That's a pretty good waterfall, I would say, on a well-priced, well-marketed property. So if you're not really getting that, you might want to look at your marketing or your pricing. And then we, of course, get those completed applications and get lease agreements signed by approved applicants. Now, I see a lot of folks that come to us going, why isn't my house renting? I'm thinking about switching from my current property manager, or I'm self-managing and I've had it on the market for 60, 90, 120 days and it's not renting. Can you help me analyze it? The very first thing that I do is look up their property address on Zillow. Surprise, surprise, sometimes it's not even listed there, which is a shocker, but if it's listed on Zillow, it definitely needs to be listed on Zillow and Redfin and all the other websites. But sometimes I see the listing and I can immediately tell it's listed way above all the comps. It's maybe not listed on all the right websites. The number one issue is usually poor photography. I illustrated with a few examples of different properties that we've onboarded successfully, and this was the pictures that they had online before they hired us. It just unclear, cluttered, corners of rooms, not looking good. So you want to make sure you're using a vacant property pictures, or at least really, really well staged. But I would go lean towards vacant pictures and always professional photography. Of course, once we do find a well-qualified tenant, we're going to put them through our screening process. We look at 5 criteria. But what's really important to know here is that it's not what you're looking at, it's how you look at it. And what I mean by this is a lot of property managers are going to say, well, we look at credit, we look at income, we look at employment and rental history, but they're not doing the due diligence that's necessary for you guys to thoroughly screen the tenant. So what I mean when we look at credit, we don't just look at a credit score. We're looking at liens, evictions, judgments, bankruptcies, debt to income ratios, DTI. I mean, that's a big factor, especially in LA. You see people pull up to, $4,000 single family houses and driving G-Wagons and $150,000 vehicles, and they're making 100 grand a year. Like, it makes no sense. And they're in debt up to their eyeballs, right? It's not very sustainable. So we examine all of those key factors on a credit check. Income verification, we fine tooth comb all of this by at pay stubs. We're looking at, I hear a little bit of an echo, Charles, on my end. Do you mind muting on your end?
Yeah, sorry about that. Let me get that out of there.
Oh, you're fine. I might just be talking loud. So thanks, Charles. So we're looking at pay stubs. We're looking at bank statements. We ensure that the bank statements reflect the income from their employer, right? That's why we're looking at the bank statements, is we're correlating the pay stubs with the bank statements. And of course, we have an income requirement, 2.5 times the monthly rent. Employment verification, not only are we looking at 60 days pay stubs, 60 days bank statements, but we're also contacting their employer, running them through the process of filling out our employment verification forms. And we independently call HR. We're not just calling whoever's on their application, right? We're Googling, they work at Boeing, we're Googling Boeing and finding their HR department and throwing our employment verification at them and waiting for it to be returned and signed back to verify that that person's currently employed. Same thing with rental history verification. We're calling current and prior landlords. I can't tell you how important it is to call a previous landlord, because a current landlord is probably going to just tell you what you want to hear, because if they've got a problem child on their hands, they're probably just wanting to get them out of there. But the previous landlord, I'll tell you what, they have no compunction about telling you the truth. They're going to be very, very transparent. So if that person was a nightmare tenant and they lived in their house but have been out for 2 years or a year, they're going to give you all the details. So you got to call the previous landlords. We put more weight on that than anything. Another thing that we do is we ask them a series of questions to make sure that they're the landlord, right? The very first question is we ask them is, can you verify the address, right? If they don't know it off the top of their head, the landlord doesn't even know their own residential address. That's a little scary. We also look at tax records. So if the tenant says my landlord is Charles, right, at 123 Happy Street, and it's Bill Smith is actually the landlord on the tax record, well, we know there's something a little sketchy going on. So you got to look at tax records, you got to call current landlords, or you got to call previous landlords, and you need to have your questions listed in a way that helps you kind of suss out whether or not they're telling you the truth. Once that tenant's been approved, and of course we give you the breakdown of their application, we're gonna have them pay the security deposit, the first month's rent, transfer utilities in their name. We require proof of utility transfer, which is essential. We actually put the utilities in Marshall Reddick's name when you use us for management, so you guys don't have to deal with that. Our landlords don't really want to be dealing with utility setups. So we get the confirmation that utility has been set up with the utility account numbers. That's how detailed we get here on their pre-move-in. When they pick up keys at our office, we spend about 10-15 minutes with them reviewing the lease agreement. And that 15 minutes is really well spent, because we get to educate them on who's the boss, I guess, for lack of a better word, who runs the show and how things operate, how to pay rent, and how to follow their lease and be in compliance, right? So no unknown occupants, no unknown pets, no smoking. We go over all that with them when they pick up their keys. So what I'd say what sets us apart is we have a pretty flexible cancellation policy. We have an incredibly strong backbone of software and a fantastic website. We do not have a maintenance conflict. I really can't stress that enough. And our cost versus service, I just dare you to ask what's more important to you. I think service At the end of the day, always trumps cost. I think we have a very fair cost, but our service is really kind of can't be beat. I encourage everyone here to jump on Yelp and Google reviews and take a look at what we offer for property management. And you want your landlord, of course, or your property manager to be responsive. So not just with you, but with the tenant. I think that's something that goes unspoken or is sometimes not readily apparent, right? Which is how responsive is the land or the property manager with the tenant. So we have 24/7 emergency maintenance. It's all in-house. So we're talking with here at Marshall Reddick, our in-house employees are talking with the tenants, and I'm troubleshooting issues with them all the time. So a lot of our great reviews are actually from tenants, which is rare. So check out our online reviews and see what folks are saying about us. Actually, here's a snapshot of our reviews. So I definitely wouldn't hire someone with 2 stars for property management or 1 star. Maybe it also looks suspect at someone with 5 stars, but we're right there in the middle. I think we got a really, really great online presence with hundreds of reviews across all of our offices. If you want to learn more about our services and fees, we have a very, very transparent breakdown. Once again, that's a part of our philosophy here, which is transparency. So you can jump on our website, you can click any of the markets that we're in and see exactly what the fees and costs of service would be. It's really pretty simple. The 3 fees is your property management fee, right? Depending on if you have a single family house or a 20-unit building, it's going to be a little bit varied. The cost of tenant placement, that's 50% of 1 month's rent. So anytime we're putting a brand new tenant in there, it's 50% of the first month's rent for all of that work that we do with the pre-move-in inspection and the leasing process, all that good stuff. So take a look. Very simple, no vacancy fees, no startup fees, no administration fees. And what you can expect if you do decide that you're interested in talking with Marshall Reddick or myself is to set up a consultation. Just like Robert Hall, we do free consultations to understand more about your goals and what you're trying to accomplish with your portfolio. Maybe you're just thinking about buying your very first investment property in Texas. That's going to be a much different conversation than someone that has 53 units in LA, right? Someone who I spoke with had a very similar number of units in LA and very different challenges, right, than someone that's investing out of state in a single family house. So we're going to look at your time frame and what your goals are, what your experience has been, what your options are, and introduce you guys to the next steps and all the key players. And you can do that, of course, with myself. My name is Chris Carlson. Again, here's my contact information. I encourage you guys to take a quick picture of it, reach out to me over email if you're interested in a consultation, or just give me a call or shoot me a text. And there's my phone number there too. And would love to chat with you guys about your particular situation. I think I always like to kind of jump back in here and see if we got any questions, but it looks like let's see if we have any comments or questions here. Looks like someone asked if we have experience with evictions. We do have experience with evictions. Thankfully, it's very, very low. We don't encounter many evictions at our firm. Our eviction rate is like 0.25% in our portfolio. So we do a handful every year over our 3,000 properties, which is pretty insane because of the strength of our application process and educating our tenants. But if we do need to go down that route, we have got a great law firm that we can refer you to in any of our markets. And here locally, we have great law firms that we can advise you with. And then, of course, we don't charge a hefty fee for eviction coordination. It's $100. $100 eviction coordination fee means we're doing a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of work. If we do encounter an eviction, I'm posting notices, communicating with the attorney, communicating with you, representing you in court, and going through that process. So that's a whopping $100 for the entire eviction process, because we have so much faith that we won't encounter an eviction. It's so incredibly rare. When we place the tenant, we don't really charge, we charge a nominal fee, a very, very low fee. So thank you for the questions. And if anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to reach out directly to me. There's going to be a brief survey after this. This kind of concludes our webinar here. So It's gonna be a brief survey. I really encourage you guys to fill that out. Let us know what you're thinking or any questions you may have about property management or investing here locally. And I see Charles has got his camera back on with his 8-month-old son. So Charles, thank you again for taking the time.
Sure thing.
Hope you
And the
learned
little
something.
guy wanted to say hello, so it's nap
Hey,
time's over.
buddy. Nap time's over, yeah. Well, hopefully I didn't put anyone else to sleep on today's webinar. So if you guys are still hanging with us, feel free to reach out to Charles and I with any questions. Charles, you got any last words for our folks on the webinar tonight?
No, you nailed it, man. Like Chris mentioned, we're here for you all just to be an extension of your success, a conduit of your success, if you will. So yeah, reach out if you have any questions, and thank you again for spending some time with us this evening.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.